If you have not seen Us by Jordan Peele, please do not watch this video. Just go watch it, come back, save the link. I don't know, but just don't watch this because we got some spoilers. Thank you. What's up, guys? So I just saw this film, Us, by Universal and Jordan Peele, the infamous man. And first of all, I want to give it up. I really want to dive into this prominent verse, Jeremiah 11:11, that is shown throughout the film. And I don't want to dive too deep into the plot or the characters or anything like that, any typical movie critique, because first of all, I'm not a movie critic. Second of all, I don't watch enough movies to be one. And third of all, I need to digest a lot more. I literally just watched it a few hours ago. Let's dive a little bit into this verse coming out of the book of Jeremiah. So Jeremiah 11:11, if you were to read it on its own, goes as the following. Therefore, thus says the Lord, behold, I am bringing disaster upon them that they cannot escape. Though they cry to me, I will not listen to them. Well, that sounds fun on its own. But this is why myself and plenty of other biblical scholars, or even just Zoe makes her way into every single vlog. Anyways, like I was saying before, I was very rudely interrupted by my dog. A very general rule of thumb that myself, many biblical scholars, and really all Christians in general should use as a rule of thumb is never reading a Bible verse on its own. Context is everything, location, 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 just like buying a house, because the Bible is a bigger picture that everything works in tandem together and it tells one bigger story that we are meant to understand as a whole. So I want to get a little bit into why this verse is so heavy, who it was to, who it was spoken by, and why the time mattered so much, because I don't want anyone running off too much with this one verse, saying things about God, saying that he doesn't hear our prayers or that God just, punishes his people for no reason, because that's just not true. And I want to kind of clear up this picture if even the one or two people mistake this, but I do want to kind of deep dive into Jeremiah a little bit and get into what this verse comes from. So here we go. So before we can start, I want to cover what the book of Jeremiah is and who Jeremiah was. So we have Jeremiah, who is a major prophet in the Bible. That just means his books is one of the longer ones that we find in the Old Testament. It was written by Jeremiah, and he is known as the weeping prophet. This is a prophet that went through a very tough time, but also loved the Lord and went to war with his life for the Lord, and he spoke a lot of really tough truths. It is a very good example for us of how to stand in good faith, really carrying the sanctity and the weight of his word. If you would either flip over the Bible, Google it, get it on your phone, this is your time to now. So basically here in Jeremiah 11, we find Jeremiah relaying a message to people, a message from God. And we basically have, in very short summary, in the chapter 11, you can read it on your own, but in very short summary, we find Jeremiah telling them, yo, God gave you this promise. He told you what would happen if you don't follow it. He gave this promise to your fathers when he brought you out of Egypt. You and your people and your fathers have turned away, and now bad things are coming. You will cry out. God will not hear your prayers or your cries, and you're gonna go to a lot of other gods, and they're not gonna do anything for you. It's a lot of tough truth. And this speaks back to God bringing the Jews out of Egypt, when we find Moses splitting the Red Sea and the promise that God had a promised land for them, and a land that would be filled with milk and honey and all these great things. But then we still have stories of the golden calf, and we could repeatedly see stories throughout the Old Testament of people turning away from God and forgetting his word and worshiping other idols. And in Deuteronomy, we find a list of cursed bees. Of these people who do these things, they will be cursed. God promised them great things, but God also promised within that these curses. And God's promises are held true. They are brought to fruition. And this holistically goes both ways. And so what he's saying here is, I'm not going to hear you because you're treating me like every other God that you worship, when I've told you what that would do and what would happen when you do that. This came in sort of a relational way. This is not someone saying, God is saying I'm abandoning you, but God saying, I promise you this if you do this and just love me. And you have failed to do so. If you've been in a relationship or you've had any fight with friends or family or anything, we all know that the worst thing someone can do is be silent. We would almost rather someone give us the attention of yelling at us or just kind of going off on us. But silence, the silent treatment's one of the worst things that you can do. But God is saying, I will not hear their prayers because they have chosen to turn away from me. I did not force them to, I did not lead them to, but they did it on their own. But this has to be taken in the context of the entire Bible. We see a God that is constantly pursuing his people, sending prophet after prophet after prophet, and then going silent between the gap of the Old Testament and the New Testament. And then we have Jesus. So when you isolate this verse of saying God is not going to listen to his people when they cry out and they have left him. That is in God's bigger picture of these people turned away and did not listen to me. But I will still send my son to save them and take away their sin. And now we have eternity and a new life, and we are reborn again. And that's a whole different discussion. But this verse cannot be taken in isolation. God is a jealous God. He is a God of justice and a wrathful God, but he's also a good, gentle, and peaceful God. And he's the only being that we've seen that's able to accomplish this in a good way. And God had to show them what it'd be like to have no God for them to appreciate what it's like to have God. And so I just hope that after seeing this film and people are Googling, trying to figure out what Jeremiah 11:11 is, that they are able to get a very biblical, grounded explanation of what this verse is, who it's from, and why this matters. And I want us to be reminded that we have a good God who has done so much for us. And I would rather have a jealous God that is so hurt and so just broken up about his people turning away than a God who is apathetic. And I don't see that here. I see a God that is loving his people with some tough love. And I hope that this verse can be taken in the bigger picture. So thank you so much to Jordan Peele again for the film Us and everyone else that worked on it. It was an incredible film, and I think it's going to do great things in terms of waking some people up and seeing a lot of tough truths. And I hope this Bible verse does the same. I'll definitely be seeing the film again, but thank you for watching. Just had to film this vlog real quick. There'll be more on the way. So thanks so much. Blessings, fam.